Bill Gates's story begins quietly, in the calm neighborhoods of Seattle, where rain softened the world outside and curiosity shaped the world within. Long before he became one of the most influential figures in technology, he was simply a thoughtful child who found comfort in books, puzzles, and questions that stretched his imagination. His family encouraged learning not through pressure, but through gentle structure and meaningful conversation at the dinner table. In this environment, Bill developed a habit that would guide him for the rest of his life: the ability to focus deeply on ideas that captured his mind. That early sense of curiosity became the foundation for everything that followed. As a young boy, Bill often disappeared into books that were far beyond his age level, drawn not by obligation, but by the thrill of understanding something new. He read encyclopedias, history texts, and science books with an intensity that made time feel different, almost slower. His teachers noticed that once he connected with a subject, he wanted to know every part of it, every layer hidden beneath the surface. He didn't chase recognition or attention, he chased clarity. And through that clarity, he discovered a quiet confidence in thinking deeply rather than quickly. Bill's early life wasn't driven by ambition or competition. It was driven by a simple love of learning and a desire to understand the patterns behind the world. He found comfort in challenges that required patience, and he recognized early on that the mind grows strongest when it is allowed to explore freely. His parents supported this mindset by giving him space to think and by encouraging him to trust his own curiosity. This balance between structure and independence created an inner calm that stayed with him through every chapter of his life. Everything changed when Bill was 13 years old and his school introduced a computer to the students. It was large, slow, and nothing like the machines people use today, but to Bill it felt like discovering a new universe. For the first time, he found a tool that matched the way his mind worked: logical, precise, and endlessly open to exploration. He spent hours at the terminal, typing commands, testing ideas, and losing himself in the quiet rhythm of programming. It didn't feel like work, it felt like a place where he belonged. Programming became Bill's sanctuary, a space where focus turned into flow and ideas took shape in the glow of the screen. He often stayed late after school, writing lines of code until the building grew silent and the world outside disappeared into the evening. His fascination was not driven by dreams of the future, because at that time computers had no widespread purpose. He was simply drawn to the beauty of logic and the satisfaction of building something from nothing. That calm joy would guide him toward choices that changed the direction of his life. During these early programming sessions, Bill met Paul Allen, an older student who shared the same spark of interest in the emerging world of computers. The two of them spent countless hours imagining what these machines could become and how they might one day move beyond laboratories into everyday life. Their friendship grew naturally, built on shared curiosity rather than ambition. Together they explored, experimented, and learned with a sense of wonder that often made them forget the passing of time. What they didn't know then was that their partnership would eventually reshape the technology landscape. By the time Bill reached high school graduation, computers were no longer just a fascination. They were a calling. He enrolled at Harvard with the intention of studying mathematics and computer science, surrounded by talented students from around the world. Yet even in that environment, nothing captured his focus like programming did. He found himself returning again and again to the same quiet flow he had felt back at Lakeside School, solving problems late into the night while the rest of the campus slept. It was during these moments that he began to realize his path might lead somewhere unexpected. The turning point arrived when Paul Allen showed Bill a magazine featuring a new microcomputer called the Altair. To most people, it looked like a small device with limited capabilities. But to Bill and Paul, it represented the beginning of a revolution. They saw a future where computers would no longer be rare or intimidating, but accessible tools that could help ordinary people work, learn, and create. Bill felt a calm certainty rising within him, a sense that this was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when curiosity and opportunity aligned. Leaving Harvard was not an emotional decision for Bill. It was a thoughtful, deliberate step, guided by clarity rather than impulse. He understood the risks, understood the uncertainty, and understood that the window of opportunity would not remain open forever. So he followed the same instinct that had guided him since childhood, the instinct to trust his mind, trust his curiosity, and trust the quiet pull of an idea that felt meaningful. With that, he and Paul Allen created a small company called Microsoft, unaware that they were about to change the world. Microsoft began in modest rooms filled with handwritten notes, humming machines, and the quiet determination of two young men who believed computers could become something far greater than the world imagined. Bill approached every challenge with a focused calmness, analyzing problems with a clarity that surprised even those who worked closest to him. He wasn't motivated by competition, but by the satisfaction of creating something that worked beautifully. Every line of code felt like a small step toward a future he could already see forming. And that future felt both exciting and inevitable to him. From the earliest days, Bill's leadership style became unmistakable. He asked questions that went straight to the core of a problem, often forcing people to think more deeply than they expected. His intensity wasn't loud or aggressive. It came from a deep belief that excellence mattered and that every detail contributed to the bigger picture. He pushed himself harder than anyone else, not to prove something to others, but because he believed the work deserved that level of care. This quiet standard of discipline became a defining characteristic of Microsoft's culture. As the personal computer era began to emerge, Bill recognized that software, not hardware, would shape the future. He understood that what people needed most was not a powerful machine, but a clear, intuitive way to control it. This insight became the seed for Windows, the operating system that would later transform global computing. The idea wasn't about dominance, it was about accessibility, about translating complex technology into something anyone could understand. Bill believed deeply that knowledge became powerful only when it became reachable. The development of Windows demanded tireless effort and long nights filled with problem-solving and refinement. Bill reviewed countless lines of code, walked through every feature, and questioned every assumption. He pushed the team not to move faster, but to move smarter, to think long-term instead of chasing quick wins. His calm determination created a sense of direction even when the work felt overwhelming. Slowly, the pieces came together into something groundbreaking, something that would open the digital world to millions of people. When Windows finally entered the world, it wasn't perfect, but it carried the potential Bill had envisioned. For the first time, everyday people could navigate a computer through simple windows, icons, and menus rather than cryptic commands. This shift democratized computing and accelerated a technological wave that touched homes, schools, and workplaces across the globe. Bill felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that something he once imagined in small rooms was now reshaping how people lived and worked. It was a reminder that ideas grow strongest when nurtured with patience. As Microsoft expanded, the demands of leadership grew with equal force. Bill was faced with decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of users, yet he continued to rely on the same principles that guided him since childhood. Think clearly, learn constantly, and trust the process. He spent hours reading technical papers and staying ahead of trends, believing that leaders should understand the details of their field. His commitment to learning kept him grounded and aware, even as Microsoft's influence stretched worldwide. He never assumed he knew enough, he only assumed he needed to know more. Despite Microsoft's rapid growth, Bill never let go of the disciplined structure that shaped him. His schedule was rigorous, his focus unwavering, and his expectations consistent. Many who worked with him described his ability to dive into complexities with an almost meditative intensity. He believed that clarity came from immersion, and that immersion required uninterrupted time to think. His approach inspired teams, not because he demanded excellence, but because he modeled it. With success came challenges both within the company and across the industry. Competitors emerged, markets shifted, and technology advanced faster than ever before. But Bill navigated these changes without panic, always returning to thoughtful analysis rather than emotional reaction. He believed that problems became manageable when understood deeply, and he treated obstacles as opportunities to test new ideas. This mindset allowed Microsoft to evolve, adapt, and continue shaping the future of computing. Through it all, Bill felt a growing awareness that his life might eventually hold a purpose beyond technology. He never rushed this realization. It surfaced gently, shaped by years of reading, learning, and observing global issues. He understood that success brought resources, and resources brought responsibility. And as he reflected more, he began to see the world differently, not just as a landscape of innovation, but as a landscape of need. This shift planted the early seeds for the profound transition he would later make. By the time Microsoft stood firmly as a global leader, Bill sensed that his next chapter was waiting quietly, just beyond the horizon. He didn't know exactly what form it would take, but he knew it would require the same curiosity and discipline that shaped every stage of his life. He also understood that meaningful work often begins where comfort ends. And with that understanding, he prepared to step away from the company he built, not out of fatigue, but out of a deeper desire to serve something greater. When Bill stepped away from Microsoft's daily operations, he did not feel the emptiness many expect after leaving a lifelong mission. Instead, he felt a quiet clarity, a sense that he had reached the end of one purposeful path and the beginning of another. He knew that the world was full of challenges that demanded the same level of attention he once dedicated to software. The problems were different, but the mindset required to solve them was the same. He approached this transition not with hesitation, but with the calm confidence of someone ready to learn again. The first step in this new chapter was understanding global health, an area where progress had been slow and uneven for decades. Bill immersed himself in medical research, epidemiological studies, and public health history, realizing quickly that the biggest obstacles were often not scientific mysteries, but logistical and financial barriers. Many deadly diseases already had known solutions. They simply lacked access and support. This realization shifted his focus toward the systems surrounding global health rather than the science alone. And through that shift, he uncovered opportunities where strategic thinking could save millions of lives. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grew from this understanding, but it did not grow loudly or suddenly. It expanded gradually, shaped by careful study and deliberate planning. Bill and Melinda traveled to communities around the world, listening to families, health workers, and leaders who dealt with these challenges daily. These conversations grounded their approach, reminding them that solutions must be built with people, not for them. The Foundation's mission became rooted in partnership, not charity. Vaccination programs became one of their earliest and most impactful priorities. Bill learned that vaccines were among the most effective tools in human history for saving lives, yet many children in low-income countries still lacked access to them. To him, this wasn't a tragedy, it was an opportunity for improvement. He worked with governments, scientists, and global organizations to increase vaccine distribution, believing that every child, no matter where they were born, deserved a chance at a healthy life. Over time, these efforts helped reduce deaths from preventable diseases on a massive scale. Education soon became another focus, driven by the understanding that knowledge is one of the most powerful forces for personal and societal growth. Bill saw how gaps in opportunity widened when schools lacked resources or when children faced barriers to learning. He supported initiatives that improved teaching, expanded school access, and integrated technology in ways that enhanced learning rather than replaced it. His approach mirrored his own childhood. Create an environment where curiosity can flourish and growth will follow naturally. As Bill continued to learn more about global systems, he discovered that agricultural development played a critical role in lifting communities out of poverty. Farmers in low-income regions often struggled not because they lacked skill, but because they lacked tools, seeds, and training adapted to their environments. Bill supported research that developed resilient crops capable of thriving in difficult conditions. He believed that food security was not only about survival, but about dignity and stability. Helping farmers meant helping families, economies, and entire regions move toward a more secure future. Climate change soon emerged as another area that required deep attention. Bill approached it with the same analytical mindset he applied to every challenge. He studied energy systems, carbon emissions, and global supply chains, recognizing quickly that innovation in clean energy would be essential for long-term progress. Instead of treating climate change as an abstract threat, he viewed it as a practical problem with solvable components. He supported technologies aimed at reducing emissions, improving energy storage, and creating sustainable alternatives for industries that had not yet evolved. Throughout all of these efforts, Bill maintained a habit that had guided him since childhood: reading. He read widely across disciplines, believing that insight often came from unexpected places. Books on philosophy, biology, public policy, and psychology filled his shelves, each offering new ways to understand the challenges the world faced. This practice gave him perspective and patience, allowing him to navigate complex issues without becoming overwhelmed by their scale. Learning remained his constant companion, shaping every decision he made. During this phase, Bill also learned the importance of collaboration more deeply than ever before. He realized that no single organization, government, or individual could address global challenges alone. Progress required cooperation across continents, cultures, and industries. He spent countless hours meeting with leaders, scientists, educators, and innovators, building networks that could sustain long-term change. The foundation became a bridge, connecting ideas, resources, and people who shared a commitment to improving the human condition. When global crises emerged, such as disease outbreaks or humanitarian emergencies, Bill's calm perspective became especially valuable. He analyzed data, assessed risks, and communicated with clarity, offering reassurance in moments of fear. His experience in technology had taught him that problems lose much of their power when understood deeply. He brought that same insight into global health, reminding the world that challenges can be met through steady, informed action rather than panic. This calm approach helped frame crises as opportunities for learning and preparation. As he grew further into this role, Bill began to reflect on the contrast between his two lives, the world of software and the world of global development. The first was shaped by precision, logic, and competition. The second was shaped by empathy, patience, and collaboration. Yet he realized that both were guided by the same underlying principle, the belief that human potential expands when barriers are removed. Whether building operating systems or supporting health programs, he saw the same goal: helping people do more, learn more, and live more fully. Despite the global scope of his work, Bill remained grounded in simple routines that kept his mind clear. He continued to take long walks, a habit from his Microsoft days, using movement to organize his thoughts. He kept handwritten notes, filling journals with reflections and insights gathered from books and conversations. These practices allowed him to slow down, even when the world demanded speed. In slowing down, he discovered the clarity needed to continue moving forward. His journey during this period revealed something deeply human, that impact is not defined by scale alone, but by intention. Bill did not measure success through accolades or recognition. He measured it through progress, however small or incremental. Every improvement in health, education, or living conditions felt meaningful because each represented a life made a little better. This perspective gave him a sense of purpose that was steady and unwavering. As the Foundation's influence expanded, Bill became increasingly aware that some of the solutions he worked toward would not be realized in his lifetime. Yet he found peace in this reality. He believed that planting seeds for future generations was one of the most meaningful forms of success. The work was not about personal fulfillment, but about creating the conditions for others to thrive. His calm acceptance of long timelines became one of his defining strengths in this chapter of their story. Through all of this growth, Bill's curiosity, the trait that shaped his childhood, remained intact. It was curiosity that guided him from software to global health, from innovation to compassion, and from individual achievement to collective progress. That same curiosity continues to shape his mission, pushing him to understand, reflect, and act with purpose. The more he learned, the more he understood that the world's problems could be solved through steady, thoughtful effort. As this chapter of his life unfolded, Bill began to sense that the greatest impact he could make was not tied to a single project or initiative. It was tied to the mindset he encouraged in others, the belief that progress is possible when approached with patience, clarity, and quiet determination. This realization marked a turning point, preparing him for the wisdom and perspective that would define the later years of his journey. As Bill moved into the later years of his life, he carried with him a clarity that only decades of learning and reflection can create. He no longer felt the urgency that defined his early Microsoft years, nor the intense pressure of global challenges he faced in philanthropy's early days. Instead, he reached a steady rhythm where decisions were guided by principle rather than pace. His focus shifted from solving immediate problems to building systems that could endure for generations. This wider perspective allowed him to appreciate progress not as a moment, but as a long, unfolding journey. He spent more time thinking about the relationship between innovation and responsibility, recognizing that technology alone could not address humanity's deepest challenges. Solutions required empathy, cooperation, and an understanding of how people lived their daily lives. Bill learned to value the voices of those directly affected by the issues he worked to solve, seeing them not as recipients of aid, but as partners in shaping a better future. This humility transformed his approach and strengthened the Foundation's ability to create meaningful, lasting change. Through listening, he discovered insights that data alone could not reveal. During this period, Bill continued to speak publicly, not to promote himself, but to share knowledge that could help others navigate complex issues. He communicated with the calm clarity he had cultivated over decades, breaking down difficult topics into understandable ideas. Whether discussing climate solutions, pandemic preparedness, or agricultural resilience, he emphasized that progress came from consistent effort rather than dramatic breakthroughs. His voice became a source of reassurance during uncertain times, reminding people that challenges were manageable when met with steady, informed action. This calm approach encouraged hope rather than fear. Bill also became more open about the lessons he learned through failure, acknowledging that he had made mistakes throughout his life and career. He believed that mistakes were not signs of weakness, but opportunities to understand the world more deeply. By sharing these reflections, he encouraged others to see growth as a lifelong process rather than a fixed destination. This perspective made him more relatable and helped people recognize that even the most accomplished individuals continue to learn. Through honesty, he created space for others to pursue improvement without the weight of perfection. In his personal life, Bill embraced routines that kept his mind clear and grounded. He maintained his habit of reading widely, choosing books that challenged his assumptions and broadened his understanding of human behavior. Walks became moments of reflection where ideas settled naturally and complex thoughts untangled themselves over time. These practices were not forms of escape, but ways to remain connected to the world with a calm and open mind. They reminded him that clarity often emerges during moments of stillness. This balance between action and reflection became essential to his well-being. Bill's understanding of legacy also evolved, shifting away from awards or recognition toward a more subtle sense of contribution. He came to believe that real legacy is built through the people whose lives improve because of your work, even if they never know your name. This belief freed him from the need to chase visible achievements, allowing him to focus on efforts that would matter long after his lifetime. He felt grateful for the opportunity to contribute in ways that extended beyond personal identity. In that gratitude, he found a deep sense of peace. His impact became less about him and more about the world he hoped to support. As he continued working, Bill grew more confident in the idea that collaboration across nations and disciplines was the key to solving humanity's most urgent challenges. He supported global partnerships that encouraged shared knowledge, believing that no country or organization could face the future alone. His optimism came not from ignoring difficulties, but from understanding how much progress was possible when people worked together. He often pointed to historical achievements as reminders that collective effort can reshape entire eras. This perspective inspired a sense of unity that guided many of his initiatives. Over time, Bill's reflections on life became increasingly shaped by the theme of continuous growth. He saw learning not as something reserved for youth, but as a lifelong responsibility that kept the mind active and resilient. He encouraged others to adopt curiosity as a habit, reminding them that even small questions could lead to meaningful discoveries. This belief resonated with people across the world who felt pressured by comparison or uncertain about their path. Through his example, he showed that personal development is a quiet, steady process rather than a race. Growth, he believed, belonged to those who stayed open to new ideas. As this chapter of his life unfolded, Bill found comfort in the understanding that he didn't need to predict the future to help shape it. He needed only to focus on the present moment and make thoughtful decisions that contributed to long-term progress. This mindset allowed him to navigate complexity without becoming overwhelmed. He trusted that clarity would come through consistent effort and that solutions would emerge when guided by patience and intention. This grounded approach became a model for others seeking stability in an unpredictable world. Through calm leadership, he created space for thoughtful action. In his later reflections, Bill often returned to the idea that the most meaningful work is rarely glamorous or immediate. It happens quietly through small improvements that build upon each other over time. He recognized that many lives had been touched by efforts that would never appear in headlines, and he valued those contributions deeply. The quiet victories meant as much to him as the celebrated ones. This appreciation for subtle impact revealed a maturity shaped by decades of experience. It reminded him that progress measures itself in lives improved, not in praise received. Bill's journey shows that success does not require brilliance alone, nor does it depend on constant achievement. It requires curiosity, resilience, and the willingness to examine one's own assumptions with honesty. He learned that leadership is not about being perfect, but about being thoughtful and consistent in moments that matter. Through this understanding, he approached each new challenge with humility rather than certainty. He became comfortable with the idea that he did not need all the answers, he needed only the commitment to keep learning. As he stepped into the quiet rhythm of later life, Bill found satisfaction in the idea that each chapter of his journey had prepared him for the next. The intensity of his youth taught him focus. The growth of Microsoft taught him discipline. The challenges of global health taught him empathy. And the reflections of his later years taught him wisdom. These experiences came together to form a life defined not by a singular achievement, but by a continuous pursuit of understanding. That pursuit became his compass, guiding him gently through change. Now, as you settle into rest, Bill's story becomes more than a biography. It becomes a reminder that your path is allowed to grow, shift, and evolve with time. You do not need to rush because meaningful progress unfolds slowly. You do not need to compare yourself because every journey has its own rhythm. And you do not need to fear uncertainty because clarity emerges through patience and reflection. Let his journey reassure you that calm effort carries you further than frantic ambition. Your life is a long story, and every quiet step counts. As this documentary comes to an end, allow the lessons of his life to settle gently into your thoughts. Let yourself breathe deeply, knowing that growth continues even in moments of stillness. Let your mind release the weight of the day, trusting that tomorrow will bring new opportunities for clarity and purpose. You have time to learn, time to evolve, and time to shape your own future. Rest in the comfort that your journey is unfolding exactly as it should. Tonight, let calmness guide you forward.